Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Let me know when we're ready, Marissa, and I'll get started. Ready? Perfect. Okay, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Robert Sakata, the Ag Water Policy Advisor here at the Department of Ag. Really appreciate you taking your time today to join us. For informational purposes, this meeting is being recorded, and we'll post it on our YouTube page for people to view later. And I will put a link in the chat for today's meeting agenda. Um, a very special thanks to our Deputy Director of Communications, Marissa Rudolph. She's been working fiercely behind the scenes, not only organizing this, but keeping our drought webpage up to date and a lot of different outreach events that are going on. Um, throughout this meeting, please don't hesitate to ask questions, make comments, interactions. That's what this is all about, is connecting people, connecting events to really help our ag producers across the state. That's our main goal, is to figure out how we can help our ag communities make it through this drought year. Um, as I've observed, there's a lot of amazing things going on across the state, and we want to be able to share the opportunity of what's going on and then figure out if there's gaps that we need to figure out a way to fill those needs. So I think we'll get started with any public comments. Does anybody in the public have any public comments? Seeing none. And again, welcome to interact anytime. So don't hesitate to raise your hand or put a comment into chat uh, with anything, and we'll try to respond. And so, unfortunately, since there's no public comment, I get to continue to blab on with the CDA update. Um, a quick mention that it's now not, unfortunately, now for agriculture, not just about the drought. Um, there have been numerous violent thunderstorms, as you probably heard on the news, moving across eastern Colorado, the Eastern Plains. Last night, Wiggins, I guess, got hit pretty hard by hail. At our Ag Behavioral Health Work Group meeting that was held yesterday, Jacob Walters, who lives down in Fowler, he said a tornado literally went over his head down in the southeast corner of the state. So, the severe storms and wildfires, of course, have started to pop up across the state. So it's more important than ever that I think that we really need to stand together as a community and really watch out for everybody in our communities. Brief update. Monday after our last Drought Cooperators meeting, the Drought Task Force met on June 1st, and after receiving updates, was a unanimous decision to provide the governor a recommendation that we go into phase 3 of the drought, which he did declare on June 4th. And then on June 2nd, CWCB organized a drought tour, which we'll hear from a report on that, a debrief from our Director of Conservation Services, Evan Caviness. Other updates, we have an online hay directory, and I'll get that link into the chat as well, and we're opening it up to outside of the state. So anybody that has hay for sale, it's going to be online, so we can adapt and change it. If somebody all of a sudden doesn't have hay, they can take it off. But this, I think, will be an important resource for individuals that do not have connections with feed sources when we may be seeing pastures really tend to dry up this year. Please continue to provide information for our resource document. We're continuing to update our drought webpage with information that's put there. And then again, encourage you to post events on our drought webpage as well. And you can do that on a form that we have. Great examples of this is tonight, CSU Extension will be hosting a 1-hour webinar on livestock. Livestock producers are having to make some tough decisions about what kind of herd size they feel like they can support this year. So there'll be a group from CSU talking about that. Tomorrow, Colorado Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association will have a webinar on drip irrigation. And then I hope we hear from Greg Peterson from CAWA. I think they're having a lunch and learn topic. I think it was next week. So again, I think this calendar can be a great resource for us to get the information to our ag community about some of the great work that you are all doing. Next CWCB meeting will be June 15th and 16th in Gunnison. And then I'll be traveling to Flagstaff, Arizona to represent the Colorado Department of Ag at the Western Agricultural State Department of Ags. Unfortunately, the big topic there is going to be about animal disease, since we've now had infections of New World screwworm identified in the U.S. But I'm sure we'll also talk about water as we're there. There'll be a comet training in Hotchkiss on Tuesday, July 21st. And then the Colorado Department of Ag will have an open public forum held the evening of Tuesday, July 21st as well in Hotchkiss at the Mesa Winds Farm and Winery. And then our Ag Commission meeting will be the next day in July 22nd, also in Hotchkiss. And then our next Drought Task Force meeting will be Thursday, July 23rd, is it? No, 28th, right? 28th or 23rd, Melissa, I forgot.
23rd is the Drought Task Force meeting, 28 is our Ag Drought Cooperators meeting.
That's right. Exactly. I get them mixed up. Yeah. Thanks, Marissa. And then I called you Melissa. Golly, I'm really messing up this morning. So the next Drought Task Force meeting is Thursday, July 23rd. And then our next Ag Cooperators, this group will meet on Tuesday, July 28th. And Marissa, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. If you do have any questions about New World Screwworm, we do have a great New World Screwworm page with a bunch of webinars there. So if you heard that and got anxious, we have a ton of information about that as well, just not for this meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great. Well, thanks, everybody. Now we'll have a debrief on the drought tour. Evan?
All right, finding my unmute button. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. Like Robert shared, I felt really privileged to get to participate in the CWCB's Drought Task Force tour. That occurred the day after the Drought Task Force meeting. It was on June 2nd. And it was a really interesting tour. I'll start with that. It really covered all sort of areas and interests. And it traveled throughout Grand County, and we were able to see at different sites how the drought is impacting industries across the state. So there was a focus on recreation, municipal impacts, storage, and then, of course, agriculture, which is why I was there. So in my presentation, of course, I feel like it's a tall order to encompass just how drought is impacting the wide varieties of ag sectors and communities across the state. But I think that we did a pretty good job of talking through just how severe it is for many folks on the ground, regardless of whether you're groundwater dependent or surface water dependent. There's sort of impacts across the board that we were able to share. Commissioner Greenberg also shared on the mental health impacts of drought, which I think dovetailed really nicely with some of the stories that I was able to share. And I also want to highlight that a producer, Doug Bruchez, was able to share from his perspective on Reeder Creek Ranch, which was really great because his family's ranch dealt with some pretty severe drought impacts back in 2002, which is, of course, the year that most folks are using as a comparison for this year, even though this year is worse. I do think some of the bright spots of what we were able to share on the Drought Task Force tour, for example, Doug's family, post 2002, they got very proactive on infrastructure upgrades and partnerships with all sorts of everybody you can imagine, from the wildlife side to the, water storage side. They had all these different players involved, and they shared that this year they are much better prepared for this drought than they were back in 2002, and able to continue to be profitable this year because of those proactive measures that they took. And that was really the name of the game for what I shared as well, with the folks that were on the tour being leaders in all these different industries, being able to share where state investment really matters to support ag producers to be resilient and proactive and do what they can. Of course, drought is out of our control, but there are things that can be controlled, and where the state can invest in those opportunities is really important, as we all know. So all in all, I think it was a really meaningful event, very informative, and I think some good collaborations are likely to come from it. So I'd welcome any questions folks have, but on the high level, that's what I had to share back.
Questions for Evan? I know one of the messages that we're really trying to get across too is how important our watershed health is to the ag community. And I know your team at the Insectary is doing some amazing work. Evan, can you talk a little bit about what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting, actually. So, some of you all may be aware that the Mountain Pine Beetle Task Force is a new group working on pine beetle infestation of the Ponderosa pine forest, especially along the Front Range, right where it's at that urban interface. And as part of that task force and project, the CDA was able to secure supplemental funding as like an emergency measure to create a biocontrol response to the mountain pine beetle. And so that team is actively collecting. There's two species of carnivorous predatory native occurring Claridae beetles. And they are going to, we have facilities at the Insectary and Palisade where they're going to rear them in mass. And then, in collaboration with the State Forest Service and all these other partners, identify key release sites along that, again, urban interface on the Front Range. And the idea in theory is that we can balance out with a whole bunch of predators to sort of get down those populations either before they're infested or once infested. And so it's really cool. It's an augmented biocontrol project, similar to the project that we are seeing a lot of success with on the corn earworm in Olathe right now, actually. Again, this idea of it's a native occurring pest species that we want to see less of. Well, let's just mass rear a bunch of native occurring predators and balance it out. So yeah, really exciting work that the insectary is doing on that forest health.
Well, thanks, Evan. And one of the projects that I know Marissa's working on in the background is to organize a tour. I think hopefully that'll be at one of the sites on later this fall. So we'll try to keep you up to date on that as well. And I did see a comment in chat that I spoke really fast. Sorry. Trying to fit a lot in. So Marissa did put into chat some of my highlights, and then I'll also send the link actually to my notes. So, and it'll have live links in there too. So that'll be the easy way to share. Any other questions for Evan? Not seeing any. Thanks, Evan, very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Greg Peterson's up to bat next. Greg, can you give us a Colorado Ag Water Alliance update?
Yeah, not much to update right now, Robert. I mean, we're just a few things. Been working a lot with just helping out livestock owners with FSA programs, specifically one called ELAP, which can help cover the costs for trucking, transportation costs for water, feed, and moving livestock due to drought. And so that's something that we're just helping people navigate. And the big thing to keep in mind with that program is even though the applications are due next year, throughout this year you need to keep really good documentation, and that's something that I'm working on with a number of people, and then also still working with the potato growers. I mean, they've got a surplus of potatoes, and we're still trying to connect their cold potatoes to livestock owners around the state. Got some dairies starting to take those, some feedlots. The people that need it most, unfortunately, are often ranchers. And the difficult issue that we're running into is you just can't give a pile of potatoes to cows. They'll choke on them. You have to either dry them out over like a month or two, or process them in some way with like a mixer. And a lot of ranchers don't have this equipment. So it does. And even though the potatoes are free and you only have to pay the trucking costs, that is making it harder. And I'm meeting people who are interested. It's just we're on the ranching side, but having a hard time figuring out how to process those kinds of that feed. But that's something that open to ideas and working with people on, and still I think finding more people every week to use those extra potatoes because they're out there. And then just I think one update, just been talking to a lot of livestock owners lately, and I know that if we don't get rain in the next few weeks, we're going to probably see another big sell off in cattle everywhere, is what I'm hearing. Just people are really, and they've already often sold cattle, but I think we've been hearing about this El Nino.
I think the Super El Nino might have hit Greg. Greg, we lost you. well, I just echo what Greg is saying, is I know many of us were just at the Colorado Cattlemen's Association meeting earlier this week, and there was a lot of talk about that. And even our brand inspector, Todd Ingley, has indicated that seems like there's more animals at the sale barns recently than what we would consider at this time. So a lot of tough decisions. I think that's where tonight's webinar being put on by CSU is probably going to be pretty popular. People taking a look and seeing, because they not only, I mean, sure they'll get less income, but by selling their livestock now, but if they want to get back into it, it's just how expensive, because animals are so expensive right now, then how do they get back into it again? And you can't just do it instantly. It takes many years in order to build a herd back up. And so it's a really complicated factor, and one that we'll have to continue to monitor. And then, like I said, I think on our calendar, there's a link and information about Kawa's lunch webinar next week, which I can't remember off at the top of my head what that discussion's about, but I really appreciate what Greg's done on the potatoes. I know one producer down there is trying to actually dry the potatoes there in the San Luis Valley first, break it up and dry it there before then it gets hauled off to some animal feeding operation, which would eliminate some of the challenges that Greg was talking about that ranchers have right now. But he was joking with me, that this producer was joking with me. He said he needs a giant size parking lot where he can spread all those potatoes out, grind them up, spread them out, dry them out, and then pick them up, because it's really hard to do that in an open field, because then you're going to mix it with so much dirt and everything. So it's interesting, the challenges that they're facing, but some of the creative ideas that they're thinking about to overcome. Well, hopefully Greg will get back on so we can ask him some questions. But now I know a question that a lot of people have been having is that now that we're in phase 3 of our drought response plan, what does that really mean? So really want to thank Emily Adrid for joining us from CWCB. And Emily, thanks also too for all the work that you do for the Monitoring Council. We really appreciate those updates that you provide us too. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Robert. And thank you all for having me today. I have a few updates, definitely building off of Evan's update of the drought tour and some of Robert's updates as well. Like it was mentioned, CWCB hosted a drought tour in the headwaters area of Grand County earlier this month. The tour brought together lawmakers, state officials, water managers, experts, ag producers, and the media to see firsthand the impacts of drought on the ground, specifically in the headwaters area in Grand County. The day before the drought tour, the third drought task force meeting was held. And at that meeting, the task force members agreed to recommend that the governor move into phase 3 of the state's drought response plan. So on June 4th, the governor officially moved the state into phase 3 through a drought emergency declaration. Phase 3 allows the state to assess unmet needs, coordinate response efforts, and provides a foundation for additional actions if necessary. Phase 3 doesn't automatically unlock funding or impose watering restrictions. It formally recognizes the severity of the drought. It gives the state additional flexibility to consider targeted response actions if needed, and creates a pathway for the drought task force to identify unmet needs and elevate recommendations to the governor if necessary. So overall, phase 3 and the the drought emergency declaration is a really important signal that Colorado is facing extraordinary drought conditions. It raises awareness and helps state agencies coordinate around a common understanding of the severity of the situation, and it ensures that the state is prepared to act quickly if additional needs emerge. So that's a pretty high-level overview of phase 3. I also wanted to just provide some updates and reminders, more specifically towards CWCB. Our water plan grant applications, the application date deadline is July 1st, so really coming up here. It's a week from today. Our next board meeting is on July 16th, 17th, and then the next drought task force meeting will be on July 23rd. And those drought task force meetings are live streamed on CWCV's YouTube page if you are interested in viewing them. And that's all I have today.
Great. Thanks, Emily. And I know you can correct me on this, but I know sitting on the drought task force meetings, it's really somewhat challenging because that emergency response plan often and those emergency response funds are often for things like floods or tornadoes. And so where there's an identified structure, like if a bridge washed out or something, a community was impacted, and those things may be useful in recovering from those types of disasters. But the statewide fund is kind of something, I mean, the statewide drought is something that's really challenging. And I hate to keep reiterating it, but I think it's really going to be a time when local communities, when we step up and figure out what we can be doing, because it's a statewide issue. It's kind of this slow pain throughout the summer about what's going on and continuing to build. And so, it looks like even some local communities that are depending on direct flow water rights are going to have challenges just even finding drinking water for their community. So we have to be there to figure out ways that we can support each other through this.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you hit that right on the head. Drought is such a different type of disaster. It's slow moving. And yeah, the Drought Task Force is considering, any further additional actions to be taken to help respond to the uniqueness of this slow moving disaster.
And so will does the drought task force then, it makes recommendations to the governor? Is that what happens, Emily?
Yes, yeah. The Drought Task Force is gathering information on the impacts that are being felt on the ground locally. And based off of those impacts and the needs that are identified, they can recommend actions that the governor may take.
That's great. And that's a great reminder for us on our drought webpage. There is an opportunity for anybody to put their drought story in there so we can document some of the impacts that are going on, and to also respond to it to see if there's any kind of current resources available to help them. So let people know about that. Questions for Emily? Great. Well, thanks, Emily. Thanks for keeping us up to date.
Thank you.
Now talking about other opportunities, because we're always looking for other opportunities to partner. And as we were just talking about, this drought is impacting many sectors of Colorado, including the recreational industry and then the aquatic life itself in streams and rivers this year. So we invited Kate Ryan, Executive Director of the Colorado Water Trust, to join us today to talk a little bit about their program and what's going on this year. Kate, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks everyone for having me here. I'm going to pull up some slides. Here we go. All right. Colorado Water Trust is working with several agricultural producers this year to use their water rights in ways that complement their ag productions and also benefit our rivers. We've been working now for 25 years on our mission, which is to add water to Colorado's streams and rivers. And we do that in significant part in coordination with the Colorado Water Conservation Board and its in-stream flow program. The heart of what we do is we work with water users. Some of them are ag producers, some of them are municipal or industrial, but we work with any water right owner so that they could use their water rights to add water back into Colorado streams and rivers. Everything we do is voluntary, and we always work within the prior appropriation system. So just like any water user, we or the CWCB have to use water for a approved purpose. And when we do that in coordination with water users, we do provide compensation. And that's something that, of course, has been very important to our partners this year in particular, and in particular, our ag producing partners. We do work all over the state of Colorado. Colorado Water Trust has small offices in Durango, in Buena Vista, and Denver. Most of our projects are on the West Slope, but we can work anywhere in the state. So if you're located anywhere in Eastern Colorado, don't hesitate to reach out to us. These are all places that we can work and have worked for the last 25 years. When we work with water right owners, we do a lot of outreach like this, but we're relying on you to contact us. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the work we do looks like. But I want you definitely to know that if you do reach out and contact Colorado Water Trust, just having a conversation with us doesn't commit you to working with us in any way. And any conversations that we have are confidential. We do frequently work with the CWCB on projects, but we also have contracts with the CWCB so that when any water right owners want to reach out to us and talk about possibly doing some sort of a project, all of that conversation initially is free and confidential. We have a website where you can learn more about our work, and there are places you can fill out forms with your water right information if you want to work with us. But particularly this year, I encourage you just pick up the phone. I'll have our information at the end of this presentation. Just pick up the phone and feel free to do what you're comfortable with. Send us an email, pick up the phone, and we can talk about your water rights and whether it might work sense for you to work with Colorado Water Trust on putting your water back into the river this year and potentially getting compensation for doing that. We do have some parameters, just so you're aware. When we work with any water right, we do, as an organization, want to make sure that it has a benefit for the environment and that the water is significant enough that it makes sense for us to do a project with you. So we look for direct flow rights that are decreed for greater than half a CFS. And we can also work with storage rights. When we do that, we're looking for storage rights that are greater than 20 acre feet. Your water right can't be on the abandonment list and it can't be conditional. We don't work with wells. We only work with direct flow or stored water. And we hope that you have a pretty good record of use with Division of Water Resources. If there's any sort of a decent history, even if you're questioning it, again, feel free to pick up the phone and call us. When we work with water right owners, we typically do a fairly detailed analysis to see if leaving their water in the stream would have some benefit to the local stream system. Messaging for this year, almost all of our rivers and streams are in need. So feel free to reach out to us. Don't overthink whether there will be a need. There is something to consider this year, however, if you've already gone out of priority, we won't be able to use your water in our programs. But if you may come back in priority later this year, there is going to be potential we could work together. So, for instance, some producers we've been working with this year are going out of priority for a short time. They think, depending on storms, depending what happens, they may have water later in the year and they may not want to turn their irrigation back on. And so that provides an opportunity for them to work with us if they want to leave some water in the river and potentially gain some compensation that way instead of putting the water back on the land this year. But I will mention we also do work with some ag producers who will turn off their water for most of the year and put a late season pulse back on their fields if that will help set them up for hopefully greater success next year. We also look at water rights And if you're interested in making a difference in your local stream, we'll be able to tell you how much benefit your water is making in the local stream system. When we work with water users, there are a ton of tools out there, and Colorado Water Trust does have many permanent projects. This year, we're mostly talking with people who are interested in doing something just for this year alone, and that's entirely fine. We are able to have a conversation with you and look at all the different options that might work for your particular water right. Something I will note that is that if you're interested in doing something in the future, and you might want to set up a permanent project, you can set up permanent projects so that you're able to plan ahead, and then you can make decisions about implementation together with Water Trust on an annual basis. So we do have lots of producers that we work with who will just have conversations every year and say, does it make sense for Colorado Water Trust to use your water this year? Or do you think you're going to want to use it this year? Or do you think we're going to want to figure out some special timing? So as you think to the future, feel free to contact us to discuss those types of considerations. But also for this year, feel free to contact us and we'll see if we can set up something for this year. When we do set up projects, I'm going to name 3 different kinds of tools we can use that you might be able to use this summer if you want to do that. One of those tools is an in-stream flow lease or loan. That's when a water user leases or loans their water to the Colorado Water Conservation Board for in-stream flow purposes. And usually or often when we do that, we get a 10-year approval. And that water can be used for in-stream flow in 5 out of 10 years, but we can also do a single year approval. We can do this with direct flow water rights, or we can do it with stored water rights. This slide shows an example on the Yampa River, and I like to bring this example up because that's an instance in which Colorado Water Trust is helping CWCB lease water out of Stagecoach Reservoir. And that water is used for in-stream flow purposes, but one of the great things for agriculture about projects like these is we can also tie to time and target leases and releases of water out of storage so that that water helps a critical reach of stream, but then it's reused by agricultural producers below. So we can also have a significant benefit of boosting flows that can be diverted to irrigation. In-stream flow loans and leases are really great and they can be done on an expedited basis, but they do take some lead time. And I want to mention lead time right now. As you're planning out this summer, if you think you might be interested in working with us, contact us now. Don't contact us the day before you might be interested in working with us. I said at the outset, we work like other water right users within the prior appropriation system. So we do have to go through approval processes with DWR and with CWCB. And so it does take some time. But we can get things done as quick as possible. And one tool that we can use is called a water conservation program. That is a way of leaving water in the river that's effectively like a non-diversion, approved non-diversion, and it does not involve the CWCB, so it is a little bit faster to get this into place. One catch with water conservation programs, they are not available to water users in Division 7. And then a significant benefit of water conservation programs and also the in-stream flow leases that we do is that when your water right is enrolled in an in-stream flow lease or a water conservation program, you can get compensation because your water is used for the environment, but your water right is also protected from abandonment and any diminishment in HCU. So the water commissioner for a given year would go out and they would code your water. If it's enrolled in one of these programs, they wouldn't say it was just not diverted. They would say it was enrolled in a WCP. And so you are entirely protected from any threat of abandonment or diminishment to your historical consumptive use allocation. Water conservation programs can be done for 10 years, with 5 years of operation, but they are also something that we can do just for this year. We've done this a fair bit, so please do feel free to call us and get information. Even if you're in doubt, you're not sure this is going to work, feel free to pick up the phone, see if we can do it. A third thing that we can do is called an ag to ag transfer. That's something that's in the statutes that's never been done before in Colorado, but the approval process is very similar to what we do for water conservation programs. And what an ag to ag transfer would involve would be one agricultural water right could say, hey, I'm not going to divert my water. It's going to be delivered to somebody who's diverting for ag downstream, who you've already identified, or who Colorado Water Trust could help you identify. So that's a third thing we could try to do this year. Yeah, that's about all I have for today. I think feel free to contact myself, feel free to contact any of our staff. Blake Mamick is based down in Durango. We also have staff in Buena Vista, but we are happy to work anywhere in the state.
Well, thanks, Kate. I'll start off with a question. The ag to ag transfer, does seniority get into that? I mean, if there's a user between the bypass where you're bypassing the call down to the user where you want the water to go, if there's a water right in between that has a right to use that water, do they have the right to use it?
If the upstream water right owner had water in priority, we can protect that water down to the next location that we have identified. If there was already a call in the middle and that senior water right user was calling out the upstream ag diversion, then we wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so that's great information. Thank you. Any other questions for Kate? Just so everybody knows, Wendy asked a question in chat regarding drought resilience and what kind of resources are available. I did put a link to our Agricultural Drought and Climate Resilience Office on that webpage. So that link is there. You can see some of the programs that they have available through that office. And I see Kristen Boyson's on the call if you want to verbally talk about that at all, Kristen.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks for the question, Robert and Wendy. I think there's two specific programs you should focus on, although all of our ADCRO, Ag Drought and Climate Resilience Office offerings could help. First is our Colorado Soil Health Program, which many of you are probably familiar with. That program, though it does not have any current funding, we do have a soil health hotline that you can email or call at any time. And our program staff will get back to you and talk to you on the phone, or you can maybe come out to your field and talk through what are you doing, what are some options that you could do to increase your soil health or change your management practices, and then talk about kind of funding opportunities, be that state or federal funding. So I'll put that link in the chat. That's the soil health hotline. We also have our climate resilience grant program, and that's an annual grant, and that will open up in October of this coming fall, October 2026. And that funding is really, usually it's general climate. So we talk about all sorts of climate disasters, drought and winter weather events and fire, et cetera. I think this year, because of the drought, we're going to focus all of our funding on drought projects. And it'll be focused on drought resilience. So how do you build back better from this current drought and make sure in the future, when we see other severe droughts, that your operation is in better shape to deal with it. So stay tuned for that. Again, I know it's not immediate and it's not a drought recovery opportunity, but could be some helpful funding. And you can see on our website some of the projects we funded through that grant in the past. So I think those are the two big ones. And of course, talk to your conservation district. They have different programs that they're running depending on what your district is and where you live. And they're also a really great resource to connect you to technical resources and funding resources, regardless if it's state or federal or other. I think that's it.
Kristen, do you want to talk at all about our cooperative project with CWCB, the show grants that we had?
Sure. So the show grants, have been awarded, but we awarded 12 different projects that really focus on soil health and optimizing water. Hence Soil Health and Optimizing Water SHOW grant. And those projects are all across the state. They just kicked off a couple months ago, but seem to be doing very well. And they're 2-year long projects. And so at the end of 2 years, we'll kind of have some results around what different practices they did, how they improved their soil health with lots of different metrics, including soil organic matter, soil moisture monitoring, etc. And we hope to continue that program with additional funding in the future, although there's no current plans for that to open. So stay tuned. We hope to have more money in the future.
Great. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Questions for Kate or Kristen? And then Evan's put some comments in the chat too about connecting with NRCS and of course our conservation districts. Great. All right. Now we're going to talk about CSU TAPS. So, welcome, Amy. Good to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you too. Thanks for including me as a panelist today. I really appreciate the opportunity. I think I need to just be approved to share if that's possible. Great, thank you. Let's see. It went away. Oh, there it is. Thank you. All right, excellent. All right, well, some of y'all have heard me talk about TAPS before, and the program may be new to some, so feel free to pop into the chat or just ask questions as well. So I'm here representing the Testing Ag Performance Solutions Program, which is hosted in multiple states. I'm based at CSU with the Irrigation Innovation Consortium. And what we're basically in the business of doing in the context of this drought conversation that we're having that is so serious is how we can help farmers manage limited and incredibly under pressure water resources with precision and advanced strategies. So they can not only be resilient, but they can also be profitable. So we're kind of looking at the intersection between conservation and profitability. And Kate, I'm going to contact you after because we're looking at different strategies for alternative revenue stacking and other things and ways in which we can actually take this from testing and practice into the real world. So farmers love to compete, about farm competitions. So TAPS sort of takes that and takes it for a fun spin. Basically, instead of having people compete on their own farms, which have different soil types, have different weather, we actually bring people together to really showcase what the impact of effective management is by having farmers compete side by side against each other on the same field. So, in doing so, it creates a low-risk platform for people to test and test different strategies, get exposed to a wide variety of ag technologies. It's completely interactive. They get to compare themselves against their peers. It basically creates a situation where we can leverage the CSU research farms and make it more of an open campus. It really brings together a really wide variety of ag sector partners, from the commodity groups to the local co-ops to the tech companies to other kinds of investments. So,
Amy, I'm going to interrupt you here a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We're not in presenter mode for your slides.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's a really interesting. It says it's sharing. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Thank you. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Thanks, Robert.
Yep.
There we go. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you for that. All right, so there you go. So there's a QR code there if you want to kind of check out the reports, which have the in-depth summaries of the programs at not just at CSU, but elsewhere. This program started originally at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in 2017, and then has since spread across not only the High Plains, but beyond. Our program at CSU started in 2023, so we're now in year 4. And the programs all sort of share a similar format where we're not doing every farm decision, but we're taking major key farm decision making things that have to happen, and we're actually either doing them on the field if they're agronomic decisions or simulating them if they are economic in nature. So we basically have people, there's a crop that's the focus of the competition. It could be a variety. We've got a variety of different crops. So we do corn at CSU. They have to pick their hybrid, their seeding rate at the beginning. Throughout the growing season, they do their nitrogen irrigation decisions. And they also have to market their crop throughout the year using the prevailing market prices, and they also have to pick crop insurance. And various competitions in different places have integrated other key decision making like insect and disease management, cover crop termination, planting dates, replacing synthetic nitrogen with biologicals. There's all kinds of different permutations of the program where it's being offered across the United States. And what's kind of fun about it is it really doesn't take a lot of time. People can put as much time in as they want to, checking out the technologies, deliberating with their team members about their decisions. It really is a holistic integration of the agronomics and the economics together, as opposed to traditional extension, like where you do the work and you tell people after. Basically, there's stuff to learn all along the way. And we do a lot of fun events, field days, a banquet at the end of the year where the folks that come out on top get large award checks and get to be celebrated for their excellent management. We highlight profitability and input use efficiency. So those things take precedence over having the highest yield. We are mostly interested in keeping people as productive and profitable as we can, understanding that we have serious constraints with our water and serious constraints with our prices for things like nitrogen. And so we're really trying to think about this in a holistic manner. Let's see. Next slide. So if you're looking top down, what we have is at all the fields, they involve a randomized replicated block design. We're looking at the Ardex South CSU TAPS corn competition here, and you can kind of see a bit of the variation going horizontally with the different strips. So everybody has 3 replicated plots. We manage all the farm management stuff with our staff on the research farm. So people make their decisions on an online portal. So we have an irrigation decision that people had to turn in. I think it's, I don't know, Will's on the call. Anyways, basically, we're doing once a week irrigation decisions right now. They just had to do side dress decisions. We asked them survey questions along the way about what's behind the decisions that they're making. Is it a gut intuition? Is it other information that they're using? They can access on the online portal lots of data about pictures of the crop, their agricultural technologies that are embedded in the field, like soil moisture sensors. Yeah, so this is what it kind of looks like from above. We have 2 tracks in our competition. You can either compete in the full track or the limited irrigation track. The limited irrigation track has a simulated water leasing scenario that provides additional revenue for inches of water not used. So we're basically taking something like a CWSA situation in Colorado and kind of gaming it out just for people to sort of see what their revenue situation would look like for their bottom line if they didn't use all their water. And I sort of described this already, but basically this is a full growing season length competition. And I know that sounds like a lot for producers to do, but they really can spend like 5 minutes a week on this, like checking in, looking at their soil moisture sensor, looking at the weather, looking at the crop prices. People on average spend about 15 minutes a week. Yeah, and I mentioned that this is all over the place. This is just a quick snapshot of the different kinds of competitions. This isn't all of them, but we're doing this in a variety of locations with a variety of soil types, and we're all working on a multi-state basis to be able to start to compile our data. We share templates and program strategies to make these programs effective from a customer standpoint to serve producers and others. But internally, with the randomized replicated block design, we also are doing research to look at the intersections of profitability and efficiency, water and nitrogen interactions, and critically, timing. What we're really seeing is how 2 growers can put on 11 inches of water, but how and when they do that actually makes a significant difference. That's not rocket science, but it really is something that needs to be socialized more and more, especially in a water limited world that we're in. There are real opportunities to actually do better by your crop with more precise management of water. So TAPS really helps. The TAPS data that we have across multiple site years is really helpful to tease those kinds of things out. Just as a quick view of kind of the reach of the program, so the green there, we're in Colorado. Um, these are the participant counties that we had in the competition last year across 5 states. We have a really wonderful partnership agreement with NRCS that is supporting the development and expansion of TAPS in these 5 states. And just as a quick view, we were able to add Texas programs this year, so you can see the program just spreading here. But like I mentioned, this program is also elsewhere, Alabama, Maryland, Michigan, and we're all working together on a national basis. And all the programs bring together a pretty wide range of ag sector support. Like I mentioned, we have critical support from CWCB for this project. And I stayed up late last night. We're putting a proposal to do a forage taps on the western slope. It would be a multi-year perennial forage for alternatives to alfalfa, so lower water things like sandfoin, et cetera. And we're really excited to work with grazing groups on that potentially starting next year. Yeah, I mentioned that we collect a lot of data that's available to the participants. So for some things, these might be tools that people are actually using, or they might be new to people. Um, we provide a lot of data that they can use, and you can see that just like real farms, there's a real wide range for people in terms of what they do, in terms of what their costs are, the different decisions and the cost ramifications that they have. So, for example, last year we had people planting seeds at a rate of 20,000 seeds per acre, kind of going with that low population, low input approach to, a more standard 35,000 seeds per acre. People did a wide variety of things with their nitrogen, which had a huge impact on people's bottom lines. And you can see, especially there on the right, that spread 4.1 inches from the team that used the least amount of water to 17.5 inches for the team that used the most. This is what's happening out on the ground. And so what's really nice about TAPS is it brings everybody's decisions together so people can benchmark themselves against their peers. Only the winners are named, so there's no shame or harm or foul. Like if you end up being like the highest water user and, like don't come out on top with profit. There's no, it's basically just a co-learning situation all the way along. So, for example, here's some data from last year. Like I mentioned, the 4 inches on the left to the 17 inches on the right, you can see that there's a correlation between the amount of water you use and the amount of your yield. You can see that there's not a correlation between the amount of nitrogen you might use and the amount of yield. This means there's an economic opportunity to dial in your inputs better and really be looking at residual soil nitrogen, very critical for people's bottom lines. These are the kinds of things that we can highlight, which is really fun. On the bottom here, you can see we've got the nitrogen and water interaction. So just like I was mentioning, there's definitely a correlation between the water on the right there with the blue dots. How much water you apply does affect your yield, but that red dot right there is the most efficient farm, and you can see that they did not use the most water to get the yield that they had in terms of being the most input use efficient, right? So you don't need to be the highest yielding or the highest water user to actually come out pretty well with your bottom line is the way these things are kind of working that we're trying to show people. Ooh, that was a funny sentence. I spun out on that one. And then you can see here on the left, we've have a lot of residual nitrogen at CSU in our field that we've been working to clean up, but I think this is the case for a lot of folks. And you can see how the farm that was the most input use efficient used considerably less nitrogen than other folks and did not take a yield hit. People need to be able to see this and have this idea of the opportunities that where they really could dial in both in terms of amounts and timing. That is really important for bottom lines. And then kind of to wrap up here, I had mentioned at the beginning, if you recall, we have a limited irrigation track and a full irrigation track. As you all know, with everything that's been happening with cattle and corn prices, it's very hard to be profitable. The black line here on the left is, in fact, profit. So most people were not profitable last year. This was not that different from what was happening on farm. The competition is a good proxy for what's happening out there. Green is grain revenue. And then you can see here on the right, all those farms with the green boxes are the limited irrigation track where they were able to avoid using inches of water, which they claimed ahead of time how much they were not going to use in exchange for a per inch revenue return to their bottom line. And that ended up helping folks. You can see that the more profitable farmers were, in fact, the limited irrigation folks last year. This is not happening in real life, but it could. And this is what we want to game out as part of this. As I mentioned, we have some fun things that we do with folks. It is serious work, but it's fun to get together and talk about this stuff. There's a QR code here for our field day coming up in July. We'll have a lot of our partners there. We'll do a field walk. We'll be giving everybody a competition update. We try to make this a great learning opportunity and a great social opportunity. We'll have great food. It's at the farm. It's super fun. So if you have questions or would like to know more about the program, but the research that we're doing under the hood, I'm happy to talk anytime. Hope that was a good update. Please ask me any questions if now or later.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Amy.
Mhm.
Any questions for Amy? Yeah, it's a really great opportunity. I mean, as a farmer, I know that I can't do that kind of testing on my farm. And plus to take the risk to do it. I mean, to set up a small strip and trying to apply different types of water or fertilizer. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to be experimenting. And like you said, it's sometimes we hesitate to focus out on this, but it's all about the bottom line, right? It's not about how many bushels per acre you can produce or necessarily. It's about what is your net income going to be. And I think that's an important aspect that you guys really provide.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, we love to have producer input. We're always working to improve the program and provide new elements. So it's definitely a co-development process where what producers' needs are, and especially in terms of figuring out how to stay profitable, being in dialogue with producers and having input to improve the program is a huge priority for us. So if you know folks who would like to be involved, please help them get in touch with us. We'd really appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Well, great. I'm going to open it up for public comment now, or if there's no other questions. And then I'd like to invite Jake. I saw Jake on. Did you get transferred over to panelist? Jake?
Yeah, I think we're all set.
Great. There you are, Jake. Great. Jake Nemers is with Senator Hickenlooper's office. Jake, will you want to provide us an update from his office?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all so much for inviting me to join these meetings. It's super helpful, being able to take notes kind of through all this stuff, seeing all the great work y'all are up to. Really helpful for our office just kind of be on top of the drought situation and in terms of anything that we can do to try to provide a helping hand or be a resource at all. Just a little update from our office. This is a huge topic that we're trying to focus on. A couple weeks ago, we hosted a drought kind of centered roundtable up in Fort Collins. Robert actually moderated for us. So again, thank you so much for helping us out there, Robert. But a really great discussion. We're going to be continuing those kind of conversations as we go around the state. So I know in a couple weeks we'll be down in the San Luis Valley and have a couple of different drought centered events set up for the senator. So talking with the ag community, the water community, and then I believe the outdoor recreation community down there as well. But so we'll be kind of hitting a couple of different angles of the situation while we're down there. And yeah, I think another big thing just to mention, I believe yesterday or very early this morning, the Senate released like some initial draft text of their farm bill. So as that is kind of going through the Senate Ag Committee, please feel free. Our office works really closely with Senator Bennett's office, who's on the Senate Ag Committee. So if there is any particular priorities or things that you see within the draft text initially that are concerning or that you really want to be advocated for, let us know just so we can make sure that your guys' priorities are being matched in this bill. And we're more than happy to take meetings, come out and see y'all wherever y'all are at. But yeah, just wanting to make sure that we're making sure you guys' priorities are met within this bill, especially just since it's been a while since we've had a new farm bill. So now that we have an opportunity to do it again this time around, like I said, we really just want to make sure that your guys' voices are kind of heard within that. Yeah, outside of that, again, I'm also kind of going around the state, like the eastern part of the state as well, meeting with my stakeholders. I was up in Haxton last week for the PFZ Farms like research field day. Really interesting stuff. I'm happy to chat more with folks about that if you are interested in just kind of learning about some of the different things that PFZ Farms is doing. They're a dryland farm, so a little less involved in water usage, obviously, but a lot of just very innovative ideas that the Falks Drafts have been coming up with and sharing with folks. So if you're either looking for a connection with them or just want to know some more information about what they've been up to and different practices that they're trying to kind of get in front of people, happy to chat with you there or get you connected with them as well. That's pretty much all from my end for now. I'll put my information in the chat if any of y'all would like to reach out or set up a meeting down the road. But again, thank you so much for having me on these meetings. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. Any questions for Jake? Any complaints for Jake? No, just kidding. Yeah, I'm interested to see what the farm bill is like. I think I just heard that it got published last night, and it is up for discussion, everybody. They've indicated that this is just the starting point, and they really want to have input on it. So we'll have to see what it looks like. So thanks, Jake. Any questions for Jake? Quiet group today. Nikki, since you joined us, I'd love for you to provide us a update on what's going on with the conservation districts.
Thanks. It's good to see you all today. And thanks, Kristen kind of did the plug earlier for the local conservation districts and their different projects. I just want to give a quick update. The Colorado State Conservation Board met in Lamar a couple weeks ago for their summer board meeting and prioritizing their funding and projects with the conservation districts. So they have a matching grant program that conservation districts apply for, and that is the majority of cost share programs that go out to producers that work with producers on various noxious weeds, all sorts of natural resource concerns, drought, water. They are prioritizing the funding cutoff for those projects. They're using the drought monitor index, and they're going to prioritize some points on the cutoff line for those that are more impacted. So that will help. Every little bit helps as we kind of go through this process. And the other thing they have going on right now is a continuously open grant for natural disasters. So not directly drought related, but effects or impacts of the drought. So fire, flood, with the storms and tornadoes. If a conservation district usually tries to step up with landowners and help connect them to other producers if they need to move livestock, that just provides some administrative support for those part-time employees to help in those kind of natural disaster situations. So really just prioritizing the drought funding where we can and helping out when fire, floods, and all those other fun things come too. So that's the update from the State Conservation Board. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any, but I'll be around if you need me.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us today, Nikki. Really appreciate it. I forgot, how many conservation districts are there now across the state?
72. We're down to 72. We had some consolidations.
We had some mergers going on, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Makes sense.
Robert, you got to remember that number. Very important.
Okay, I will. Don't test me at their next meeting, okay? Any questions for Nikki? And if anybody else wants to provide an update, please free to let us know. Put it in the chat. We can move you over to panelist. Love to have comments, input for what's going on in your organization since we do have a little bit of time today. We did get a question in the chat from Wendell Kuntz, Commissioner Kuntz, about what's the status of the CSU severance tax study. And great question, Wendell. Nora or Emily, do you want to provide an update? I'm happy to provide what I know. But the report is due, I think, to the legislature by July 15th. So I saw Karen Schlatter was on the call. I don't think she's here anymore. Karen, if you're on there, just let us know. But the Colorado Water Center is leading up that effort. They've been contracted to write up that report. I can't remember how many times the severance tax and water funding task force has met, but they've had continued conversations and getting close to a final draft of that report, which I think the Water Center will be putting out soon. And I can try to get more detailed information, Wendell, to you when we have it. Great. And can we get a link to the field day event? Oh, for the TAPS field day? Yep, Amy will get that sent. Perfect, thanks. Any other updates? I can call on people as I see you in there in the attendee list. But anybody else provide any updates? I see we have staff from a river district, Northern, St. Brain, Left Hand. Really appreciate all you guys joining us today and sharing the information. So anything else, Marissa, that I may be missing?
No, I don't think so.
Great.
We covered it all.
Excellent. Well, that'll be great. If there's no other updates from anybody else, we're going to give you some time back today, which is always a pleasure. Our next meeting is July 28th. Is that correct? At 9:30. Great. And the invite should have gone out. Oh, Amanda Lavin. Thanks, Amanda. Do you want to, Amanda, why don't I promote you to panelist? Because I would like you to talk a little bit about the markets program, and I'll put that link while she's moving over to the markets, while she's moving over here, put a link. We really want to carry the message forward that Colorado is still open for business, and more than ever this year, it's so important to be supporting local. I mean, whether it's our recreational industry, whether it's farmers and ranchers, we really got to support local this year with reduced amount of product that they'll be marketing this year. So I'll put a link into the markets webpage, which has our Hay directory, has where the farmers markets are and everything. And Amanda, you want to take it away from here and talk a little bit about what your program is doing? I'd appreciate it.
Sure, yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Amanda Laban. I'm the Markets Division Director. I oversee, or our division oversees the Colorado Proud Program, International, our Next Gen program, Specialty Crop, a whole host of programs. But I did just drop in that link for listers. So this isn't the available hay yet, but what we are doing is soliciting for forage of any type, both in state and out of state, because we know how much pressure our livestock producers are going to be under this year. So if you know anybody who has any available hay, please direct them to this site or to this form. We'll be keeping it open on an ongoing basis because we know that there'll be changes in real time. And in the past, the way we've done this is we've printed it as a hard copy document that goes out in the fall. But we want this to be live and changing in real time this year. So we're experimenting with this format. And then, Robert, I did cut out when it promoted me to panelist, so I didn't know if you had mentioned bringing up anything else related to Colorado Proud, but I'm happy to share just anything about 250-150 or other activities.
Yeah, I just put a link in for your publications. If you want to talk a little bit about the Farm Fresh directory and how the new resource where you can go online and you really refine your search.
Yeah. Thanks so much for bringing that up. So I actually just picked up my copies to take with me as I head over to a workshop this afternoon. But the Farm Fresh directory, we always print a hard copy of that. We bring it to events. But this year, with the help of some folks in OIT, we created an interactive GIS map where you can filter your search for what type of product you're looking for, a location in terms of, a radius from your home base or wherever you are traveling. And you can filter that map to be very specific to what you're looking for. We have about 200 listings this year, as we do most years. They do change year to year, but a lot of them are consistent. And so, Robert, you dropped in that map link. Or
No,
I
I
can, okay, I'll grab that. I'll try to grab it while I'm talking. It's on our website, and so you can get it directly from there. If you go to the CDA homepage and go to markets, if you go to the markets page about midway down, there's a link to get you over to that map. And yeah, so that's just a fun new feature. People have asked for that for a long time. We have been also keeping an electronic version over the past several years on the CDA website, so you don't have to pick up the paper copy as well. So always encouraging to support local. We know how much stress our producers are under this year. The Colorado Proud program hosts listings for, both producers, but also value-added products that are produced or processed in the state. And so you will see a range of available items in the both the Farm Fresh directory and in the search directory through the Colorado Proud page. Yeah, and I think that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions, and I will get that link just because I'm not good at multitasking on the screens.
No, sorry, I didn't have that link available. I just sent the link for the document page, which has the copy of the hard copy ones, and I didn't see the link to the digital one, so thanks for putting that in there. Yeah, and then so you want to give a little brief update about 250-150 about longer tables and stuff, what's going on and promoting Colorado Proud?
Yeah, sure. So we have been working with our internal team the 250 150 committee, as well as some of our partner organizations. So History Colorado is heavily involved in the 150 celebrations. And so on Colorado Day, on August 1st, we will have a Colorado Proud farmers market area outside of History Colorado. Basically, they are blocking off about 4 blocks, I believe, for a whole host of activities. But Colorado Proud will be there with several Colorado Proud members. The night before is the night market, where even though we won't have a direct Colorado Proud presence there, that night market's obviously open to everyone. The vendors there will be sourcing as much local as they can. I've heard great things about that night market. I haven't been there in the past, but it's a great event. And then State Fair is also looking at having a Colorado Proud marketplace. During the fair this year. It would support the Fair Foundation, but they're just going to try to bring in more local products for sale for you to take home during the fair. And then, yeah, I think that's it for 250 150. Yeah, I'm moving into sort of October and school meal month, which I'll spare you all for this conversation. But yeah, lots of activities. Oh, the longer tables that are happening all across the state. So we're partnering for 250 150. We're partnering with this private organization called Longer Tables, and those will pop up in communities all across the state. And we are targeting specific ones to have a heavy Colorado Proud presence, but all of them are working on sourcing local products.
Great, thanks. And yeah, Kristen put in the link for the digital.
Oh, Kristen, you're the best. Thank you.
And then Wendy, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Wendy had a question. Amanda, do you work with Nourish Colorado, working to develop a values procurement program for institutions that has a focus on locally sourced?
Yeah, so with the passage of LL and MM, there's still sort of movement regarding who the technical service provider will be. I think Nourish is hoping to be that provider. We work with them regularly, through both our community food access program and Colorado Proud. We do not house a database in-house in terms of procuring local foods for institutions, but we help share resources for that. There's been work being done through what I'm aware of through COFSAC, the Food Systems Advisory Committee, to create a broader database to help schools and other institutions purchase locally. I can get an update on that. I think there was a pilot version of it available, but I don't know the latest right now. So hopefully, Wendy, that answers your question. Happy to connect to after this meeting if you have more specific questions.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions for anybody? Because we still have many of our panelists here, CWCB, Department of Ag stuff. Sonia asked if I could share out the draft farm bill. I will try to find it for you, Sonia, and if we have a follow-up notes, we'll try to get it to you. I don't know that I have a link with it now, but I know that I was on a NASDAQ call just right before this, and part of the discussion was with acronyms that I can't even remember now, but talking about locally sourced, the programs in that, and the discussions that they'll include in the farm bill. So great question, Sonia. All right. Not seeing other questions or comments. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Kate, for joining us. Amy, really appreciate you joining us. Emily, thanks for the great update on the drought. Really appreciate everybody's involvement here. And thanks to all the CDA staff for joining us today and providing updates. In no other public comment, I think we'll close this, and you guys have a great month. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Have a safe, wonderful 4th of July. And remember, it's dry out there. Thanks, everybody.